Hello and welcome back to Out of the Blue, a Chelsea fan podcast where post-international break, I think we'd all been hoping for a nice breakaway from Chelsea Football Club, the club that continually serves to beat us down over and over again. To talk it out, I'm joined by David and Harry. Hello, gents. Hope you had a lovely long weekend. For once, a weekend not spoilt by Chelsea. Good Easters, lads.
Well, we're going to Wembley, so not
Can't
too
complain.
bad.
Yeah, happy days.
Doesn't get much better than that. I think we've got to start there with some positivity, some much needed positivity, might I add. Chelsea Port Vale on Saturday at the Bridge, FA Cup quarter-final. How are we feeling after a massive 7-0 win?
I mean, good. It was comprehensive, right? It's what we needed. I think off the back of everything else, it's nice to actually just get a run out and some of the kids get out there and play properly. I think hard to take much negatively out of the game itself. It was more what followed. But yeah, semi-final off to Wembley again. I think it's our 8th in the last 10 years or something for the FA Cup. But we keep getting to the semis. Would like to break the Wembley curse and not lose it again, but we got no Kepa this time, so maybe, I don't know, let's see what happens.
He really does seem to be the real bad luck charm, although I must admit the Arsenal hate watch following the Port Vale game on Saturday was stupendous to watch.
Cathartic.
Exactly.
Very cathartic. I felt more relief than anything with the Chelsea result, to be honest. I think everyone expected a victory from that tie. I would have liked to have seen more kids start, actually. And I would like to see Achampong actually get some meaningful minutes rather than 5 at the end, which is justice for Josh.
Well, there's an interesting thing there with Josh that I think it was last season when he signed a new deal, the club described him as untouchable. And the only untouchable thing about him at the moment, whether it's Maresca or Rosinia, seems to be putting him in the starting lineup, full stop. And you said there about hopefully, wanting to see more kids in the lineup. And is it sort of indicative of the situation we find ourselves in as a club now, that despite playing bottom of the league in League One, the team 15 points adrift of safety, we started Saturday with players like João Pedro when there was Liam Delap on the bench, who surely that would be a game to start him in. A lot of first teamers who I think we were all a little bit shocked to see in the starting lineup.
Yeah, I think you can look at it one of two ways, right? Either it shows how seriously Rossini is taking this competition and, he's really committing to going the distance, or it speaks to our lack of options and how, despite spending as much money as we spent, we're still spread fairly thin, I think, in terms of injuries and actual game-ready starters.
I think it's a combination of both. I think there is an element of you want to see the kids get a run out. You want them to have a good game. We know Port Vale are way below the level that we should be playing at. But then I think it is easy at the same time to fall into the trap, especially in a quarters of a knockout game. If you start that game badly with the kids on the pitch, granted we're at home, but if you lose momentum, it can run away from you a little bit. I mean, we saw Arsenal at the weekend as well. Not that Southampton are as low down the leagues as Port Vale are, but they didn't take Rice and some of the other players even to the game. And not that they should have done, because you should be able to beat that team otherwise. I think there are these potential banana skins, and I think given where we've been at recently, had we experienced that in that game, it would have been freefall. There's not really any positive to take out of the rest of the season. So I don't mind, while it is overkill, 100%, I don't mind going in strong there, just shoring it up and then
guarantee the result,
making sure that we've got something to actually look forward to.
Well, it did end a run of 4 games without a win, 3 games without a goal. I think the word there that I really, really go to straight away is relief when that goal goes in the first 64 seconds. And I don't know if it was just me, and this might be the privilege of being a Chelsea fan, but we won that game 7-0 without ever seemingly hitting top gear. I found it was incredible to watch a game with so many goals that for really big periods of it felt a bit turgid creatively. Even players like Palmer trying, and I guess maybe they had the license to try passes that they might not have done normally, but it did feel like if we had been in full flow, maybe it could have been 11, 12, even more than that.
Yeah, I don't know. I get the sense, I don't know if you agree with me, but this season specifically, I don't know if we even have a top gear really. Like, I don't think I've seen the Chelsea we know and love play the way that we want to see them play since the Club World Cup final, probably against PSG, where we were actually going for it. Like, it was liquid football. It was great to see. Everyone was performing. Since then, either players are tired or, the change of manager can't help. But even when Maresca, had his feet well under the desk, it felt like the players were being managed to within an inch of their life. Pedro Neto is the classic example that everyone always refers to, but making a run down the wing, checking back, playing the safe ball, it's really robotic football. And I found the first half against Port Vale more of the same. I found it really frustrating. I feel like, yes, we didn't hit top gear, and yes, it was 3-0 at half time, but we made it look like it was hard to get there, and it definitely wasn't.
No, yeah. I mean, the first goal going in, like you say, 64 seconds, and then the second one taken till 25th minute. Like, that gap in the middle was not the most inspiring football at all.
I think I nodded off for a bit. Actually.
Well, yeah, exactly. And obviously, you see the scoreline of 7-0, and it's like, yes, it's comprehensive, but I do agree. There have been a few times this season, especially post Maresca, where you felt like, oh, okay, yeah, we're cruising. Like, even when we were getting through the gears and up to 3-0, like, not that we're gonna concede or lose the lead, but like, how long would that momentum go? So I was quite pleased to see it stack up to 7, even though, like you say, it could have been 10, 11, 12. I mean, Estevao hit the post twice, and he's something else. Having him back was probably the biggest takeaway of that game. Like, he's just generates so much football. I don't know, whenever he plays, there always seems like there's something. That's the closest I feel to being like, yeah, something's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to cruise through, because he just always seems to be a yard ahead of everyone else.
But also, I think he's our one maverick player. He's the one player that plays like he's not being managed out of his kind of natural flair. Everyone else, I know Palmer's been injured for a while and is kind of coming back, but even he feels this season versus how he was previously, like he's shackled a little bit by the system potentially.
Well, with Estevao there, it's interesting that perhaps seeing some of that creative flair in the second half, fantastic from a fan's point of view, but potentially offering a bit of a selection headache, because it was so apparent how, having started him on the left, the second he was on the right in that second half, he looked a different player. We suddenly, every single bit of attack seemed to be going through him, and particularly in a side where Pedro Neto similarly has only been good off the right. I'm really intrigued to see in the coming weeks how they manage the two of those players minutes-wise, because I was surprised to see Estevao on all the way to the end, pretty much. Maybe part of that is the fact that he's coming back from injury, and he looks so great against Everton for that small cameo as well. I guess my question to you guys is, how do we fit him and a Pedro Neto into the team?
I think for me, it's he comes first and Neto's about 3 rungs further down the list. Like, I get that if Neto is probably in a point in his career where he's maybe harder to mould into something different, and if he is so used to playing on the right, it's probably an easier job for Estevao to be like, come in, see how you feel over that side. And he's obviously good enough as well to make up that difference, I think. But at the same time, you have to platform your best players. And I think he is far and away better already. So I would much prefer to see him take that spot.
Yeah, I don't think Pedro Neto is good enough to be like, oh, he needs to be on the pitch. Where do we fit him in? Like, he has been solid this season, and he's demonstrated, I think certainly the first half of the season, that he was one of our better wide options and most consistent, most likely. But whenever I see him in the stadium, I find him way more frustrating than I do on TV. And I'm more than happy having him as a second string kind of filler, give people's legs a bit of a rest.
Yeah.
Like, he's not established or good enough to be first name on the team sheet by any means.
Potentially our options on the left, though, that are dictating that conversation.
Yeah.
Because I did think it was very telling, and I know that with Twitter, people love to rile people up, but I did get riled up by the amount of comments saying about Garnacho celebrating that 7th goal penalty, taking the ball off Estevao like it was some big thing. And I think that's pretty telling of the situation we're in with attacking options, particularly with Jamie Gittins now being out for who knows how long after another injury setback. I guess what I'm asking more is, do we think that you try and muscle in Estevao on the left or Neto just so you don't have to play Garnacho? Or do we try the Delap as a winger experiment again?
Definitely not.
Please no.
I don't
Please
mind.
no.
I don't mind Garnacho on the left, to be honest. The problem I think with Garnacho is, like, from a PR perspective, Estevao, as an example, can make 10 mistakes in a game and do one thing right, and everyone will come away going, that one thing was brilliant. Garnacho can do 10 things right and one thing wrong, and everyone will say, get this kid out of my club. There's only, 3 years between them? Like, they're both still very young. Yes, Garnacho's come from United. Yes, he sulked his way out of that club and has somehow ended up at ours. But, like, I do think he's a solid left wing option, definitely better than Gittins, and obviously he's injured. And I don't really back Neto. The Enzo in the 10 experiment has to die. That's where Palmer belongs.
You
can't put him wide. So Garnacho left, Palmer in the 10, and then Estevao outright, I think, is probably our best.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, because Garnacho is an interesting one where he's probably more frustrating to watch because he tries a lot more extravagant things. Like, say, most of the time they don't come off, and that's what people see out of the game. But for a signing that was pretty widely slated at the time, I mean, I think he's ticking over pretty well. I think he's on like 11, 12 GA for the season. And
yeah,
some of those have closed out games that have been important. So while I don't think he's the most exciting player, or definitely not like Chelsea's starting left winger at all, I don't really mind him too much on the left. I'd probably approach the games, if you had a blank sheet and not gearing up specifically to the opposition, I'd probably have him on the left and then Estevao on the right, and then Neto can kind of dovetail between the two, I think.
I think you compare like Neto and Garnacho, and you think, oh, like Garnacho's tying this stuff and it doesn't come off, but he's actually like driving to the byline and then trying to put in a cross or trying to shoot from outside the box or whatever. Like, how often do they come off for anyone? Like, the best wingers in the world don't have like the highest success rate there. And just because Neto gets there and then checks back and plays a safe pass, yeah, he's not made a mistake, but he's also not like really giving anything to the team.
Anything from it.
He may well be progressing the ball, but by the time he actually makes a pass that will help the team, 3 defenders have managed to track back and get back into position. So I don't rate him, as you might be able to tell.
No, it's if you could get any inference from that. But looking ahead then, the excitement of, at the end of the month, a trip to Wembley playing against Leeds. Only the second time the two clubs have faced off after the first rendition of the 1970 FA Cup final. We mentioned banana skins a little bit earlier, and Rosigne potentially not wanting to take any risks with the lineup he put out against a League One team at the bottom of League One. Should we be worried about the potential for a banana skin? Because I know I'm not alone in already thinking ahead to a final at Wembley, and I think it's worth noting that in 2 meetings with Leeds this season, we've not won. Rosigne has played Farke 3 times and he's 0 for 3. Should we be worried about Leeds?
I think a smidge. I think there are 2 realities as a Chelsea fan at the minute, right? There's the Chelsea where we should be and what the expectation is going into the game, and then the very harsh reality that isn't often what happens. And I mean, going into that draw, I would have much rather Southampton. Not that there's... Obviously, Leeds are a better team, Southampton easier opposition, but I think Leeds is like the archetypal Chelsea slip. Like, just that level of opposition, that stature of the game, the history between the clubs.
Very spicy tie, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the biggest issue is that they will be up for it, especially with the results they've had against us recently.
Did you watch the West Ham game? The Leeds West Ham?
No.
So I did watch it because my sister's partner is a Leeds fan. So I have to admit, I was supporting Leeds just for that game, but also it's against West Ham, so whatever.
The romance of a Leeds Chelsea matchup
exactly. But they did not. I mean, I only watched the second half and extra time and penalties, but Leeds did not play well. I didn't think they covered themselves in glory at all. I think Ampadu clearly is their only player that can like really, really ball out, and he's an ex-Chelsea boy. Calvert-Lewin looked pretty lost, and I don't really see them presenting too much of a threat if both teams like turn up in the way that they should. Hopefully, I think Chelsea go on to win the FA Cup.
Well, I guess this is a bigger question, and particularly given that we've talked a lot about really positive things, and there are some more negative things coming up in this pod. But you say there about, and you think we're going to win the FA Cup. Does winning the FA Cup save Chelsea's season?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's a bigger trophy than anything that we've won in the last, 2 years?
Yeah.
And it actually means something domestically. I think everyone looks at the Conference League as, a piece of piss, we should have won it. It's going to be, I think an English team's probably going to win it again this year.
Yeah.
So, that doesn't really carry much clout, I think, for the Chelsea project and the amount of money we spent. The Club World Cup, a bit of an unknown, kind of the first one that anyone really took seriously. And our run to the final was super straightforward and PSG were knackered. And they demonstrated in the Champions League this season that, yes, it was a bit of a fluke because they embarrassed us across two legs. So I think this is the first time that we can properly put a flag in the sand and say, like, we're here to contend and compete.
Yeah, completely agree. Like, domestically, we need to get our foot in the door, I think, at least, just in some way. Like, I would have taken a League Cup as well. It sounds silly, but just having something here that we're actively competing in and not just kind of throwing away early. And obviously, with Champions League now being not quite a strong question mark now, just the way that the table's lining up, like, you have to be involved in some capacity in the competitions you're fighting for here.
Would you rather win the FA Cup and not qualify for the Champions League, or qualify for the Champions League and not win the FA Cup?
It's brutal because I want the trophy and I want the FA Cup, but I think long-term missing the Champions League is way more damaging than missing out on the FA Cup because we've not competed for a while. Like, I don't think many people are expecting us to go in and beat City and take that trophy. So that would get kind of brushed over fairly quickly, whereas missing the Champions League, it feels to a degree that the foundations of the project are somewhat hinging on that.
Well, I think talking about the project there as well, with that question and what would you rather, I think you need to look at these players and go, I think they'd get a lot more maturity-wise from winning a cup final than a lot of them got top 4 or top 5 last season, got us Champions League football, and it doesn't seem to have done that maturity on the pitch a great deal of good. There's a reason that Uncle Tossin is part of the senior leadership group, and it's because we are lacking that maturity. I agree with David that I think that to go and beat City, we've seen it firsthand with the League Cup final, Arsenal and City. That doesn't matter how dominant Arsenal have been in a league, that ability to actually do it in that clutch moment is quite a hard skill. And against a City team who've done it over and over and over again, they couldn't stand up to it. So, and also, I think talking about the project, we can't go with it. We have to go and talk about the elephant in the room that is Enzo Fernandez. Someone looking maybe a little bit disillusioned with the project. For those that aren't completely familiar, he had not only after the PSG game did he say that he didn't know if he'd be at the club after the World Cup, but made the interesting decision to do an hour-and-a-half live stream with some South American YouTubers and say about how much he'd love to live in Buenos Aires. How are we feeling about Enzo Fernandez now that the club has actually banned him from 2 matches? Are we disillusioned with him, or are we feeling his frustrations of a Chelsea team that just seems to go backwards? Where are we at?
Well, Cucurella, I think, he had similar comments at a similar time, and he pitched them in a very different way, I think. His frustrations were with the project and loving the team and loving the club, but not performing at the level that he wanted to perform at, and that's frustrating. Whereas Enzo's comments, I think, came from a slightly different place. First of all, if you're doing an hour-and-a-half live stream on international break, you're going to say some dumb shit and slip up and get caught out. That's a crazy thing to do. But I don't know what you think, but I'm kind of thinking we can survive without him. He's, we've just lost 4 games on the bounce or whatever, 4 games in the last month. He didn't put up any masterclasses in any of those matches. It's not like he's doing this in the summer between seasons. This is crucial time of the season. It's crunch time to lock in. And he's talking about what he wants to do after the season's done and where does he see himself in the future. He's not really that guy anymore, I don't think.
Yeah, he's obviously has a big impact in the squad, and I think this is his second year in a row that he's broken 20 GA, which obviously from midfield is huge. That's a great season. He obviously contributes a lot over the course of a season. I agree with you that he can go missing sometimes, and obviously if we play a strong midfield, he gets bypassed quite easily. I agree though that we can survive without him. Like I've been saying for a while, it seemed pretty obvious that he was going to end up at Madrid because they've been crying out for a Cruz type player since then, and that was his like original kind of USP at Benfica. He was a deep line playmaker. With us, he's kind of pushed forward and became more box to box. So it feels like a natural fit there, but like that's fine. That's your career later down the line. I think taking the decision to do this now it's terrible foresight, and I don't think he can complain much about the reception to it. I know obviously his agent Pastore's come out and been like, "Oh, it's unfair. It's criminal," but it's a tricky one. Like I'm torn on the punishment because I understand the perspective, and like you say about Cucurella doing things very differently. He was disgruntled with the project, not so much talking about wanting to move away, just addressing.
Yeah, it was in a different spirit.
Exactly.
I think it was in a different spirit.
And like his comments are actually worse, but it's the way that he gave them, I think, is what is more understanding. And Fernandez apparently did it on several interviews as well, talking about Madrid and wanted to move over. So I get that you, especially with him in a leadership role, like you want to kind of react to it early, let the club know that's not acceptable. That being said, a 2-game suspension with the second game being Man City feels like poor foresight on our end. Like,
yeah, I do worry that we're now a bit hamstrung by that sanction. Like, I think it was never really felt like a 2-game ban. I think they wanted it to be a 1-game ban. Banning him for the Port Vale is just like not real punishment. But I can understand why it's turned into a 2-game ban.
Does Rosenior not open himself up for more of the sort of the PE teacher memes of, oh yeah, he's banned you for a game he wasn't going to pick you for anyway?
Well, exactly. And I think like I've read a lot about like other players now kind of going and knocking on Rosenior's door, basically being like, we're not that happy having Enzo in like a leadership role. Like he clearly doesn't back the project, blah, blah, blah. Like there's clearly some damage that's beyond like the fans being like, oh, he doesn't even want to be here. Like he's pissed people off across the board.
Yeah, and I think the timing as well, and like just for him and his image and optics around the club, it's
he's also made a massive mistake in the summer that he's already had to repent for.
Well, yeah, exactly.
So like this guy who's supposedly our like vice captain and supposed to be in this leadership role, like keeps slipping up and keeps showing his immaturity.
Yeah, and it's, I think there was this idea that like his whole gimmick of like really facing up and half fighting ex-Chelsea players on the pitch, like that's a great way to win over fans, and I love it, I won't lie to you. But I think all of those things become less valuable when something like this happens, and then you kind of think back and be like, he did this exact thing with Benfica to us. He was scoring and kissing the badge, and then like 5 days later was holding our shirt. Like
it's
it
amazing
raises questions.
The way you look back on things. Like I know that the last time we spoke after that first leg in Paris, there were a lot of Chelsea fans really pleased to see the way that he kicked off at Jorgensen and at some of his defenders. And I know that as a fan, feeling that, to see that level of passion was great. But now you kind of look back on it and go, as you say, like with squaring up to players like Mason Mount in Man United games, you look at all these incidents together and go, actually, is this the problem? It's amazing that foresight, how quickly it changes the perspective.
I think we do need to have players that have like a bit of grit and a bit of bite, because we have been guilty of being too soft and easily rolled over in the past. And he is that guy. Like he does bring that into the team. And when Reece James was injured and out of the squad for ages, like we definitely needed him to be present in the squad in that way because we lacked it. But yeah, it's all a bit skin deep to me with him.
Yeah, it's true, and not to say that it's like, yeah, he's a mercenary or only out for himself or something. He's obviously very involved in the games. He's a passionate player, which, like I say, is what you need. It's just the difference is like, I know a second thing came out afterwards when they pressed him on it, but like Caicedo got asked and he was like, I have a contract and I want to be a legend at this club. Like it's that difference where even if that's not true, just to not come and engineer or try and engineer a move when the club's clearly like at a massive crossroads, because it just adds fuel to the fire. That let's say that had happened and then we lose to Port Vale, or we have a dodgy game against Port Vale. All of a sudden it's like, the entire thing is burning down. It just
Yeah, it's
It
not.
really
It's not
did.
cool. Also, it's not like the early noughties where like Peter Crouch is doing an interview saying that if he wasn't a footballer, he'd be a virgin or whatever. Like these lads are media trained to within an inch of their life. Like they know how this game works. He knows exactly what he says and how it's going to be perceived, and what that then causes in terms of a result down the line. So like, he's not dumb enough that this is like, oh well, I was just saying it's a nice city. Like he knows what he's doing.
It's like you said there about like how it might be pretty stupid to do an hour and a half live stream in that international break, and it does seem too tactical, too strategic. Like even today, reports emerging from tabloids that apparently the Chelsea players have gone and begged Rosinia to shorten the ban. Sure enough, all the sources for these are South American journalists you've probably never heard of. The timing of it all is just it leaves a really bitter taste in the mouth, and it's an interesting one whether we've hamstrung ourselves or not for the City game. I kind of look at it and I go, Caicedo is going to be captain, and like we said there,
Or Palmer.
True.
I didn't even think about
Long time
that.
coming, apparently.
Yeah. Do you know what? He actually looked so pleased in that post-match interview. I think it's the first time I've seen him smiling properly in a Chelsea shirt.
For a long time.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, let's look ahead to Man City then. We've already mentioned there Caicedo, Palmer, who's going to take the armband. It's a City team that, prior to their cup matches in the League Cup and the FA Cup, dropped points against West Ham and Forest. Haaland's only got 1 goal in 7 games for club and country. Now, off the back of 4-0 the weekend against Liverpool, Haaland hat-trick, and it really feels like they've hit it. They've hit that end of season form they seem to hit every year. What is the approach for Chelsea going into this? We obviously need to make up points. Man United are 6 or 7 points clear of us in third. We're starting to lose a bit of ground on Liverpool, who are 1 point ahead of us. How do we approach this game?
I'll be honest, I think we're going to get battered. I think I'm just putting it out there. And I'll be real with you. If it means they close the gap on Arsenal, I'll suffer it a little bit. But I just think that we will not change the way we want to play, which Rosenia's style of football, building up from the back. We're basically going to play into City's hands, I think, because they, like you say, have kind of geared up. This is their bread and butter. And I think they will be waiting to pounce on any mistake we give them. And I just think, unfortunately, we will give them 1 or 2. And once that happens, getting back into the game with the kind of lack of leadership mentality that we're feeling at the minute, I just don't think we have the momentum to really kind of bring it back over. So I'm not massively optimistic, as you can probably tell. And with Enzo not in the squad as well, granted, I know he's not been amazing recently, but I just think he offers an option against those kind of teams like that. Those are the games I think he seems to get his most joy, because the late box crashing while everyone else is condensed in the midfield, I think that gives us a viable option. And yeah, we'll have Caicedo. I don't know who else is going to partner him in midfield, because I think James is still out at the minute.
Yeah,
Romeo Lavio's overdue his first Chelsea goal. That's what I'm going to say.
No, I got so excited in that
say.
Port Vale game when he got to 75 minutes. He's going to stay on for 90. He's going to. It's never going to happen.
No.
I think we'll be lucky if we check out with a point. I definitely think this is one of those games where like we often turn up for the big games and we struggle in the lesser games, I think, to properly show up. And yeah, Enzo's going to be out, but you know, we drew away from home with them earlier in the season. If our front four are firing on all cylinders, they've got Ruben Diaz, John Stones, and Josko Guardiola all out. So like, there's definitely a story that can be told pre-match to say that this is the chance to do it. So I'm less pessimistic.
That's good. We
You
had a nice
say there
balance.
about their defenders who are out, though. I think we need to look a little bit closer to home at centre back, because I had a real moment over the international break where I'd forgotten about Wesley Fofana, and that was great. It was so fantastic to not think about him laughing in the dugout against PSG, or seemingly just deciding to have given up on being a professional athlete when faced with a sprint race against Beto. But Benoit Badiashile seems to still be MIA, still unwell, too unwell to be in a match day squad for the 4 games in a row now. We've got no Chalobah return in sight. Colwill is training, but nowhere near being able to play. It really, unfortunately, looks like Tosin will be in the middle of the defence this weekend. And even though he got that great header, I'm so filled with fear. I saw a tweet which summed it up so well, because he did progress the ball well, and he did have moments where he towered over players. Tosin is so great when he doesn't have to do any defending. That's his only... As a defender, every time that Sharif, the Port Vale striker, was running at him, I was scared. And I don't know how you can go into this game at the weekend with no other option. It seems crazy to me to go back to Josh.
Justice for Josh.
Yeah.
Justice for
Get
Josh.
him out there.
Because he played centre-back against Liverpool and looked great in that game.
He's definitely got the tools to do it. I don't know why we're so scared of putting him out there. Obviously we don't know what's happening behind the scenes, but I think we spoke about this before, where if we don't address it soon, he's going to go. And you're going to end up with a Lewis Hall situation where he plays like 3 games as man of the match against City and 2 of them, and then we ship him off.
Goes.
Yeah, and then he's one of the best players, one of the best defenders in the league.
I have a feeling the tactic is slightly different to that, if we're going to get Illuminati kind of conspiracy theory about this. But like, I think actually they're trying to play Toast into a bit of form and get some money for him at the end of the season and then bring Josh through next year. But I would like to see that maybe material. I don't want to start next year with a cold Champong because he hasn't played at all this season. And then we're kind of back in the same situation, calling for more centre-backs in January and, you know, everyone getting upset about why they're not making the signings that we actually require. But I would like to see him start this game.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not expecting tons from it. I think there's definitely a world in which we do get out with something because, like I say, the big games we do normally turn up for. And if Esteval's back playing 90s, that's a huge plus. But I do think it's the other end of the pitch that I'm more concerned at. Their front 4 are they're all on it at the minute. And Cherky's going to toy with Tosin in a way we've maybe not seen ever before.
I don't even want to think about that.
Yeah.
That is the stuff of nightmares. I guess the only other player you could throw into contention, which he seems to be liked by Rosignol, but all we've seen of him is 45 minutes of pure shambolic disarray against PSG. Is there a world where Sarr starts in the back 4 this weekend?
We might have to. This is the thing. If we've got no one else, so it seems that Josh is just doomed to never actually get on the starting team sheet. So it's possible.
To be honest, like it's a shame about Sarr's performance at PSG because I do like him as a player, and I thought he had a cameo, didn't he, before that
against Arsenal?
Against Arsenal, and I thought he looked okay. Like I, you know, even going forward, he picked up the ball like in some advanced areas and did all right with it. So, which obviously isn't his primary role, but always helps.
We love defenders that don't defend.
If you can play a nice
it's a Chelsea
forward
thing.
pass.
It's a Chelsea thing.
Oh dear. Well, okay then. So, David, you've already let us know that you think we're getting battered this weekend, which will be a lovely Sunday afternoon for us. What do you think, Harry?
I think we will check out the City game with a point, and I think we'll go on to batter United at home the following week.
Oh, we can only dream. We can only dream. Before we wrap things up, gents, I've rounded up a few quick fire questions from some Chelsea fans who listened in to our first episode. So I'm just going to hit you nice and quick, and I want honest, quick answers. Enzo Fernandez, do we want to see him in a Chelsea shirt next season?
Do we want to, or do we think he will?
Do we want to?
No, not for me.
Yeah.
Can I ask you why, Harry? Why do you say no?
Well, I think the Enzo in the 10 experiment has failed. That Palmer needs to be in there. Like, I think we all agree on that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Caicedo is nailed on starter in that double pivot. And I like the Andre Santos, Romeo Lavia as the 2 options for the other position. I don't actually think that he fits into our starting lineup as well as he did last season or the season prior. And he's a bit of a twat.
Yeah, that's the most important thing. We've talked a bit about the project, and we haven't even mentioned about some of the awful financial news there has been since we last spoke, let alone sanctions from the league, from the Abramovich era. There's a lot of unrest around the club at the moment. Fan protests planned. There's just a general feel of uneasiness around Chelsea Football Club. And financials aside, what steps could the club take to turn that direction of travel around and in the right direction?
I mean, I think it's the obvious one we've been talking about for ages. And you get these reports now, I think, off the back of Cucurella and Enzo whipping up a bit of a storm. It's signing players that are going to impact the team now. I think it's the only The only way that the financials and the club and the optics are going to improve is if we as a team do better on the pitch. And while I've been a big fan of buying some of the players that we have because we're getting them in early before they go on to be world beaters, there has to be a fusion of that with players that can actually impact the pitch now. And so I think in summer, I'd really want just like at least one, just like an actual name that we all sit here and be like, oh yeah, we've got them. And that's a massive addition. I think that's the only way that you're really going to see any big change.
Yeah, the sporting directors need to have a little bit of a change of direction. I think we're all agreed on that. What happened to like what happened to buying players and then sending them on loan until they were ready to start? Like I feel like we send the kids out on loan that'll come through the academy, and then anyone we buy just like either sits on the bench or gets to start until something good happens.
I think we've just gotten infatuated with Strasbourg, which I mean is no bad thing, but it seems like we only loan the 3 players that we're allowed to loan to Strasbourg, and no one else goes anywhere else.
Yeah, send a lap out ASAP. That Barco kid looks all right though, doesn't he?
Well, I was just about to get on to him. So,
I'll have him.
Valentin Barco. It seems all but confirmed that he will be joining in the summer.
Enzo's replacement.
Well, now that he's moved into centre mid, is Valentin Barco a signing that we should be getting excited about, or is it just more of the same? From the Blue Co model from Strasbourg, 21, turning 22, having failed in the Premier League for Brighton.
Yeah, he's a bit old for us, isn't he?
Yeah. How are we feeling about Valentin Barco?
To be a model example of hypocrisy, I'm all for it. Get him in. He's class. I think, and if anyone's watched any of Strasbourg, especially this season, he's all over it. Like, not that necessarily he's going to come in and be our best midfielder, our starting midfielder, but like on the price we're likely going to get him for, with the experience he has, I think it's a no-brainer. And
we've really missed someone in that Dewsbury Hall role as well.
The more I've seen of Dewsbury Hall, particularly in that Chelsea-Everton game, I really did just think, why did we sell you? Particularly when we've had, with all this Enzo fiasco and going, oh, who's going to partner him? I was just sat there thinking KDH would have done such a good job. And he was such a model professional.
I liked him, man. Yeah, he always seemed happy to be there. I think that was a career move. He was like, he wants to play, right? And he wasn't ever going to with us. He's clearly a good player.
Yeah.
But I think especially if Enzo is out the door, which it looks by all accounts he probably is now, we need another midfielder in anyway. And I think Barco has shown a lot of the things that you would want. So if you have the access, he wants to join, you've got it all prepared. It's a no-brainer to me. I'm very happy with it.
My only worry with that is that, like, it's certainly been the case up to this point, and I'm worried it's going to continue being the case, is that we just keep signing titch players. Yeah. Like, he is... Yeah. Like, we need someone that's a bit more statuesque in midfield. Like, shipping off Enzo and bringing in Barco, like, you're not actually solving a problem. We are getting bullied left, right and centre by, like, a lot of the other Premier League teams. And yes, we are, like, super technical and, like...
Yeah.
You know, we play good football when we're playing good football. Yeah. But when we're not, and... other teams are having most of possession, or we're up against a really physical lower league side, then we're getting absolutely run around the park, run ragged, because that's why Tosin keeps playing, is because he's the only person that can get on the end of a cross on a corner. Like, we don't have anyone tall. And yes, Arsenal are set piece FC, but they are also like the tallest Premier League team and doing it the best and the most physical. So it'd be good to see in our transfer policy some of that maybe being taken on, because like the Mourinho era of Chelsea, like squad building, it was all just like get massive lads and be the biggest and strongest and best. And I feel like we're a bit off that at the minute.
It's true. Well, this is the thing. I think Barco is a yes contingent to actually fixing some of the other problems.
Yeah.
If he's the marquee signing, then we're running into the same issues again. But given his profile and what we need in the squad at the minute, I really don't mind it.
Well, the thing with Barco that worries me is there are some great stats, as well as if you've seen any of his highlight reels, of which there are many circulating on Twitter at the moment. But he's third in Liga for big chances created and expected assists, if you're into that kind of statistical analysis. But I worry, looking at a player like Petrovic, albeit in a completely different position, that this time last year, we were all raving about Petrovic and how good he was in Liga, that he was going to walk into this Chelsea team and take away Sanchez's spot, and it wasn't going to be a problem. Sure enough, he gets sold to Bournemouth, and he's really struggled in that team. Mm-hmm. I feel like he's been a big comeuppance for them at the back. And I worry, looking at Barco, that, you're doing bits for Strasbourg, and Cisse looks good for Strasbourg, but I wouldn't put him in this Chelsea team.
Yeah, but at the same time, like Andre Santos did very well for Strasbourg, and he's kind of come into the Chelsea setup, and I think he's done fairly well. And he's, you know, he's not embarrassed himself or embarrassed the sporting directors as much as I'd love them to be embarrassed. But he looks all right. And I know, like, Ligue 1 is, you know, it's pony compared to the Premier League, and especially if we qualify the Champions League next year, fingers crossed. We need some, like, you know, proper ballers, but he looks good. I like him.
I don't mind it. I think Ligue 1 is I don't mind it as a league of bringing outside personnel in, because I think there are similarities. I think there was, I saw a graph or something recently that in terms of just like the speed of the game and time on the ball, it is the most similar to the Prem. And I think there have been a lot of good imports from France. The Petrovic question is a mystery to me. I really don't know what happened there. Good thing is we're going to be able to do the whole thing again with Penders next year.
Yes.
So we'll see if that was just a one-off or if that is just an issue with the goalkeepers. But like
he's still a way off, isn't he, Penders? I think he needs another couple of years.
I think so. I would love for him to stay there another year, but I think knowing the club, he's probably going to come over in the summer. I think he's leaps and bounds ahead of anyone we've got at the minute in terms of playing out, which Rosenia obviously wants to do, which I think is why he'll probably fast-track him, just to be like he can grow the other parts of his game, but we need someone there who's actually comfortable with the ball.
Well, I do think that's one thing about the Barco move, which I do think is very interesting, given all the speculation there's been in the last few weeks about Rosenia being out of his depth and being the wrong man for the job. Surely picking a player like Barco to come in this summer is a statement from the hierarchy within Chelsea that he's still going to be here next season. He is a Rosenia player. Rosenia moved him into centre mid at the start of this season. And I personally see that as a positive. I don't know how you guys might feel, particularly after maybe another bad result or two. But to go back to some of those player interviews, and particularly Cucurella's, I thought the most poignant thing in there was not so much about Maresca and whether the timing of his sacking was wrong, about the club's transfer policy. I just thought it was really interesting how he talked about time and the ability to trust players and giving them a chance to develop. He said that Rosenia's tactics are great, supposedly. But
are they his tactics, though? Yeah. That's the thing. I think, like, my view on it, and this is very depressing and pessimistic, like, Barco isn't a Rosenia player. I think Rosenia is a Blueco manager, and whether Rosenia is at the club next season or not is kind of irrelevant to the kind of football we're playing. It's kind of relevant to the way that transfer business is done. It's kind of irrelevant to the trajectory of the club as a whole. Like, this is a project that's bigger than Liam Rosenia, and he is there as a company man to steady the ship and do his thing and coach the first team. And I really like him, by the way. I really like Rosenia. I hope he does stay with us. I like his character. I think all of the negative press about him is totally blown out of proportion and quite funny, but totally unwarranted. And for those people and fans that don't like him, getting rid of him is not the answer.
No. Well, that's what Cucurella said. He says about, you look at Arteta, years he's been given the chance to lose, to fluff Arsenal's lines over and over and over again. And he says maybe it's finally coming off. We'll see about that in a few months' time.
Quadruple, is it?
Oh, yeah. But he even said it about Maresca as well, who I was never a massive fan of. But he says, go back to last year, pre-season, and we lose the majority of our games. You have to give a team time to adapt to a new style. And I hope, for what it's worth, if the Chelsea ownership and Blueco are listening to this, that you do keep Rosenia. We can only pray. The last thing I want to ask you guys before we finish things up, you've both said about some of the standard and the quality of players we bring in, wanting some more of those big names. Who is that player this summer? If you can bring one name in with your Barcos, with your Amiga, who is going to come in this summer, who's a big name we could actually get who changes that? And I'm not going to let you say Thiago Silva, as much as we all want him back.
I'd love to see Tony Rudiger come back. He's one player that I think left Chelsea too soon, and I think we're calling out for a player of his quality and his style.
Yeah, agreed. I think for me, if the opportunity's there, someone like Barcola, just go for it, because it's proven on the big stage. He's obviously slightly disgruntled at PSG by the looks of things, and like left wing then is just shored up completely. I just think a name A name that when we get linked to the other teams of being like, oh, yeah, it makes sense. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, and I'm sure that Barkala recommendation has nothing to do with how he played at Stamford Bridge or that goal. Nothing
finish was
whatsoever.
I don't know what you're talking
absurd.
about. Don't remember that game.
Yeah,
Blocked it out.
What was that?
Well, gents, thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure. Cheers, Harry. Cheers, David.
Thank you, mate.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening.